basically, workplace discrimination refers to a situation where an employee or a potential employee, meaning applicant for example, is placed at a disadvantage compared to other employees who are in a similar situation.
Have a positive attitude. You will face barriers. Every immigrant does. It's only natural.
It's time that an immigrant who wants to do or contribute should actually step out and do your own best to actually showcase that I have something to offer. Then that person you're trying to show would say, oh, okay, let's give this guy a try and see what he has to offer.
So my name is Paul Kenya, Entergrate board member, and I will be the moderator throughout the evening. So, before I'm going to present you our agenda of the day, I need to. So, there are several research, for example, in Finland, that has proven that the discrimination is rising, and there are a lot of cases of discrimination that are not actually reported. So, the topic of the day will focus on overcoming workplace discrimination. This is the topic that we are kind of exploring today. And if I wanted to quote, for example, a recent survey, what actually gives the importance to this topic, a recent survey by the European Union Minority and Discrimination Survey that was done in 2017. It was actually clear, it actually was done in Finland, and it was actually clear that 45% of the respondents who participated on the survey actually did face the discrimination in that same year. 60% of them had faced discrimination related to the recruitment process, and 12% of them were just as normal workers as most of us in the audience. So I really believe that together with this selected panel, as you can see here, we will kind of first of all state what is the current status of workplace discrimination in Finland. We will actually look a little bit, we will be answering the question of how to recognize discrimination. We will also see how to deal with it if it arises. And of course, it would be good to highlight also a couple of institutions in Finland that actually provide support on the issue. So, without, I'm going to present to you the agenda, how we're going to be running this session today. First of all, I will go with the introduction of the beautiful panel that you have here with me. We will have a short break where everyone will be free to grab something to eat, refreshment. Of course, we will start now the discussion panel where we will be kind of getting the knowledge or pulling out the knowledge. I can guarantee to you that's my target of the day. I would like to pull that knowledge from the panelists so that we can get it out. And of course, I will be assigning some time as well for you to kind of reflect if you have any question to the panelists. Of course, after that, we will kind of wrap up the lesson learned of the day. And the most important point that I would like to emphasize here is the last point, which is actually networking and snacks. Yeah, this is the most important point for me because it's something that actually myself I put a lot of pressure for us to have it here. Because I believe this is a great motivation for me being here today. So, thank you very much. So the first speaker of today is Olga Silver. Thank you for being here. Olga is a project manager, as you can see, City of Helsinki. She has done actually a lot of great work. The master thesis, I wouldn't actually read the slide there, but you can see that the research work that she has done on her master thesis is actually related with work discrimination. So this is exactly where we need to kind of get that knowledge from her today. The second speaker as well is Kurt Richard. Thank you for being here, Kurt. This is one of the interesting profiles I've seen. If you think about Kurt moving in Finland, I think Kurt has been in Finland for over 20 years now as a professional photographer with several awards. I wouldn't actually start, so maybe Kurt would kind of stress on that more. So thank you for being here, Kurt, today. And of course, our third speaker, Osita officer. It's really great to have him on the finally sitting there because he's someone actually who prefer to be behind the scene. So this is he's Entergrate, the chairman of the board, and he always liked to be behind the scenes. So it's really great to have him on the stage with us today. So welcome here, Rosita.
I myself am an immigrant also. I came to Finland 18 years ago from Kiev, Ukraine. So studied here in Helsinki University and then started my work career here. But back to my topic, work discrimination is a huge, a very vast issue. So we'll just scratch the surface with our evening tonight. Basically, workplace discrimination refers to a situation where an employee or a potential employee, meaning applicant for example, is placed at a disadvantage compared to other employees who are in a similar situation. This is not immigrant-specific issue. Basically, a majority of Finnish workplace discrimination is done by locals to locals. And we can move on. And there is plenty of legislation forbidding workplace discrimination. First and foremost, the Constitution of Finland forbids it in general, and then Non-Discrimination Act and Act on Equality between Women and Men go into much more detail as how discrimination works, discrimination of all sorts. Then Employment Contracts Act also goes into much more detail on work discrimination, and law on civil servants and public employees. I actually haven't found the English translation. It's available only in Finnish, unfortunately. You could of course find all Finnish legislation at finlex.fi, so if you're interested you could go there and look for it, and it basically tackles discrimination if civil servants either commit it or if it's done in. So what are actually the forms of workplace discrimination? Direct discrimination is like the most striking one. For example, if a person is told that he or she couldn't get the job due to sexual orientation, straight to the face. I'd say that you get less of these in Finland because, people try, employers don't tell it to your face. They find some other reason. And some other reason is much more common, indirect discrimination. For example, an employer could tell you that all applicants have to speak perfect Finnish, even though it could be bus driver. Define perfect, and in what job? So yes, that's discrimination.
Sorry to interrupt you already. You're using the word as an adjective, perfect. But actually what you see most common in this type of discriminatory job advert is the word native.
Yeah.
Because no one can argue against that we can't suddenly become natives. We could
Exactly.
actually speak perfect Finnish, but we can't become native
Exactly.
Finnish speakers.
Yeah.
So,
Some also speak about fluent, which is
but again, it
better.
doesn't directly
Yeah.
discriminate against foreigners. But
Yeah.
using the word native
Yeah.
precisely discriminates against foreigners.
But I have to say that obviously, that's a very strong point. But I have to say that even if they say fluent without definition, it doesn't help, because for different people, fluent is different.
I agree, yeah.
So, yeah, if you see that it's a very manual job with not too much interaction with a client, you are not responsible for a person's life. Nobody will be dead if you misinterpret, and there is still demand on fluent or native Finnish, then this is the case of indirect discrimination. Harassment, basically workplace bullying of different sorts. And then also instruction or order to discriminate. Say an employer or manager says to the staff that you will not let Roma into this restaurant. This is already discrimination. Even if nobody has yet followed this order, just the order to discriminate is already in criminal law. And then refusing reasonable accommodation. Basically putting a small step forward in order to let the person be served or be employed. For example, not providing obstacle-free access to working place. That's for people with disability, for example.
Unfortunately, I think what happened with me is I got extremely depressed after about 3 or 4 years. It really seemed pretty hopeless. And, I'd committed to moving here. I really wasn't sure what to go. I had no network. Eventually I started working back in the States. But everything, what happened here, I moved in '97. 2000, we had the digital change, and the value of photography diminished. And that's universal. It doesn't matter where it is. Eventually, where I was able, there's certain things that I did was definitely, as you pointed out, have a positive attitude. You will face barriers. Every immigrant does. It's only natural. That you are an outsider. But the thing that I found interesting, and this is, I'm sure you probably have all made this observation as well. The Finns have a lot of pride, but very little self-esteem. And it is a pernicious combination. And I don't mean that to be arrogant, but I've been working in my craft since I was 12 years old. I know what I'm doing. You may not like it, but I sure as hell know what I'm doing. But your self-worth is something else again. And that really took a hit being here. I mean, I couldn't give myself away. As a matter of fact, that was about the only way I could get work, was if I did it for free. But for every problem there is a solution. The question is if you have enough time to find it. I found joining groups like this was tremendously beneficial. You build a network. Finns, more than other people, hire people that they know. And that's part of the whole native thing. I know less than 10 foreigners who speak Finnish well enough to be considered like, he's a mutant, he's okay. No, I mean, off the top of my head, my neighbor, Roman Schultz, he's apparently incredible, he's German. But the other thing that you do is LinkedIn. And I have to say, I don't like the platform, I don't think it's well designed, but I've gotten work through that. And it is also, and this made no difference, I did the same thing in New York, it is persistence, If you get knocked down, get up and do it again.
And like you see from the introduction, or Paul said it clearly, I like to always be behind the background because I believe that the work we do on Entergrate is not my personal work, but it's something that collectively we give it our best. And I want to thank every member of the team here because all the events we've held, all the activities we have had zero funding, including this one here, and we meet every second week, and we give our time. And the goal of this is so that we can not only better the lives of ourselves in Finland, but also better the lives of people who we are coming to fit in with, and that's the locals, so that they can understand where we are coming from as immigrants to our newly adopted homes. So, without further ado, I would go on to my part if the slide is. I have just a few slides.
I can't get a connector. Maybe we'll take the next speaker first because I can't connect
It's okay. You could just turn it, and I would explain it. I have only 2 or 3 slides there, so it's nothing special. It's just key points that I would have to remember. When I came to Finland, within 2 weeks of being in Finland, I realized I came here to the University of Helsinki to write an entrance exam to study economics, which was my passion. I wanted to be a professor of economics. But right there and then, after 3 weeks in Finland, I realized that I probably don't have a shot at that. But that was my passion. And what did I do? I changed my field to a vocational school because I knew that was the only way I could get my leg into a company where I could get a work. That was the only way I could get employed. Luckily, I was fortunate. It worked out well. 3 years in Omnia, I got a skill as a cornea center. And I applied for a job in Planmaker, the company there, where I stayed for about 8 years. And the key was, how did I get this job? I realized as an immigrant, and back then, which was not as it is now, that easy, that I wouldn't need to apply for a job, sit in my house with a foreign name, and someone comes calling at my door, we want to take you. But I really had to show what I've got, that I'm eager to do something. And that was what landed me my first job in Planmaker. I applied for the job 1 week after I was on the door knocking. And this guy, Arimatila, I remember him, he saw my face, he saw the light in me. He was showing me all the machines that they were operating there. And I was like, I want to do this. He saw it. The next week, they called me up and they gave me a job. And I was doing everything I could. But I knew that was not what I really wanted. I knew I had to do more. That's not where I want to be. And luckily, I kind of feel I'm where I want to be now. But during this process, why I'm telling this story is that during this process, it took me a longer time to get to where I want to be. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. But the key, why we are saying this is, I know my abilities, I know my skills, and I know what I want to give to a country where I've adopted as home. I know I'm not leaving Finland in the next 15, 20 years, even if I want to. This is home. How do I make it home? By giving it my best, by feeling welcome. And how does this happen? By letting the locals understand me. But we know that discrimination would always exist. In the workplace, outside the workplace. It's always going to be there. But the key of this event is not that we focus on the problem, but the solution to the problem.
So, actually, when I'm thinking about the presentation of Olga, that was actually really interesting, your presentation. If I wanted to ask you, for example, in few words, what are the main reasons for discrimination in Finland? If you can say in few words, like, what are the main reasons? Of course, I know that discrimination in Finland is quite different than in so many other countries. Can you identify a couple of reasons?
The biggest reason is fear of unknown. I mean, Finland is no empire. We didn't have history of immigration. We had a history of out-migration, but not really history of immigration since end of 80s only. So basically, people who don't speak like Finns or look like Finns are unknown. So you don't know what to expect. And then, you know, human nature gets people cautious at that point. It's easier to stay at your zone of comfort and be, you know, just as you've always been, status quo. So, I mean, psychological tendency is there, but then again, I want to pinpoint a few points. Those of you who are living in Helsinki, by 2030, quarter of all dwellers of Helsinki will speak Finnish or Swedish not as their native tongue. Quarter of population will be of foreign descent. And this amount will still continue to rise very steeply. So, I mean, this is not a very small minority anymore. And I think that Helsinki is a forerunner in this respect. And you will see how the attitudes will start to change, because we already see the second generation coming in who are talking Finnish and then or Swedish and then something else. So I think we will see the...
My children.
Yes, and mine.
Yes. So, yeah, I want to link to what you actually said at the moment. When I'm thinking about you, Kurt, you have actually had a long experience here in Finland or whatever it is. Could you identify any kind of discrimination upon structure in our public services in Finland, for example, in a day-to-day life? Can you identify something that can be actually spotted?
You know, I mean this. There's a self-discrimination with Finns. They don't see a value in what they've done and what they've achieved. I've never known. I mean, there is this great pride in Finns, and yet I was on the board of directors for the Finnish Fulbright Commission, and I would bring in articles. And for instance, there was a while there with the New Yorker. I don't know if you know, it's a very highbrow, erudite New York magazine, out of New York, but it's really world issues. It's about anything, and they kept on referring to Finland. And I would bring it to these board meetings, and there would be the Finns that would somehow find a way to undermine, this incredible compliment that was being paid for them by one of the most, intellectually respected magazines in the United States. And so I think that let me put it this way, and again, those of you who know me, I'm sure you've heard me say it before, Finns do not like their level of competency held up to an international standard. And I'm an international standard for them, because I was successful in New York, and I got in a lot of museums. I got big grants. I came here on a prestigious grant. And I remember walking through Stockman's with my children, and they were toddlers. And there was a photographer who was also teaching at the university, probably back far away from me as a room. And he looks at me and turns around and goes the other direction. I mean, he was that uncomfortable talking to me. What do you think? I was going to ask him to babysit? I don't mean, but yes, that's discrimination. But the point I want to make about discrimination, which I think is important, if you need to get to the point where you have to report your boss or colleague for discrimination, the battle's lost. It's not that you've lost. It's not that it's wrong. But, at that point, you're pretty much eliminated a way to move positively forward.
Yes.
You're bringing it to a court of law.
So considering, that was really interesting, your point, actually. Considering, for example, you've been in different culture, or in New York City, in Helsinki, how will you, for example, rank the level of discrimination? I mean, how will you rank the level of discrimination? I mean, in all these different culture or group in Finland?
Well, I mean, I lived in England for 2 years, and I'm still in touch with a lot of my, photographers and artists I made friends with there. They were curious, and the photographers, I was in many ways, I was competition for them. They were freelancers, I was too. And again, I think the discrimination is, like as I said, they see you as a threat, and they see any foreigner who's coming in who may have achieved more than they have as a threat. The discrimination I faced was people seeing me and turning around and going the other direction. But again, it's like, I knew I was good for jobs, and I applied for them and they wouldn't get them.
I want to jump to Osita, because Osita, you had a really great approach on how to recognize discrimination. If I just want to ask you in a couple of words, if someone is moving to Finland, let's say he doesn't know, but how can I know I've been discriminated against? In few words, how can I know I've been discriminated against?
Okay.
Take an example.
I would say first that discrimination is an international thing. It's everywhere. But the thing is, the level is different. And there's something that has always happened. Everywhere that change has happened, if it's not embraced, it becomes a problem. Finland is changing, Helsinki is changing. And like he said, if an average immigrant is seen as a threat, what happens is, after some time, it becomes we against them. It has happened everywhere, where people feel that, okay, they don't like us, so we form a close community here, and we do our thing here. And that is what has led to the international crisis we've seen. It has happened in America, when there was migration from Mexico, and it's happened everywhere. When it's not done right in the beginning, it's always a problem. And that's why, if an average immigrant comes to Finland for study as a refugee, whatever, the first thing that needs to be done is try to understand that person. What can be done to make his life? Because someone leaving his home to move to another country is a big thing. It's a very big thing. He's like lost. It's like throwing someone in the middle of the sea without knowing how to swim and tell him to swim.
Yes, yeah, I agree with your point. I would like Olga also to reflect on that.
Okay.
I think Olga would like to reflect on that as well.
Okay, how to recognize discrimination? You send applications. They are not responded to, even though you are qualified. You know that you are. Every word in advertisement is, you've used it. Your qualities are just fine. You apply for the field that lacks manpower. You know you've been discriminated against if you're not called back. That's the first one. You are in the interview, say you've got to that stage, and you are, for example, asked about your family plans, which, by the way, is forbidden by law in Finland. And if you are asked, you can lie. You can say that I will never marry and have kids. And this is okay, because it's illegal to ask.
Exactly.
And if you are called later and told that, like, we need, for example, a long-standing worker, and unfortunately you cannot commit, so we will not hire you, you are being discriminated against.
Wow.
You are at your position at job you went for, so for example maternity leave, and then you come back and see that not only you have been demoted, your job has changed without notice to you. This is criminal law already. You cannot do it to the person on maternity leave or paternity leave. For example, those. Of course, obviously, your employer asks you to work longer without any sort of compensation.
Yes.
And other similar.
Yes. So I will stay with you, Olga, to follow on the same thing actually you mentioned now. So if, for example, as an employee, I feel like I'm discriminated against, is it my right or is it an obligation for the employer to give me an explanation about it if I'm requesting for that?
Of course, they have to tell you about it. If they are unwilling to tell you about it, and they say that this is such a small issue, you are overreacting. Check it. Check it with your trade union. Check it with Ombudsman on Minorities. Return with their legal advisors to your employer and have a cordial conversation on the matter.
Excellent.
Be very polite.
Yes, I really want to, because this is really interesting. So, what I would like to know is about this. What protection do I have if, for example, I'm actually, trying to, approach my employer, trying to file for a discrimination case? What protection do I have from the law? Could you reflect on that a bit?
Well, depends on what sort of. The employer could be, if it's minor. By minor, nobody had a real damage to it yet. For example, Helsinki City had received an order by the Ombudsman on Minorities that we should stop, that was some years ago, our practice in Vuosaari of putting kids of different descent to different classes, because this is discriminatory. So basically, Ombudsman can order anybody around that you will stop this practice now, or there will be consequences. If something has happened already, for example, the person has been discriminated, you're to expect some sort of financial, compensation for your suffering.
If you think about my kids, if my kids who were born here and have fins still see themselves more foreigners, imagine what would happen, say 10, 20 years down the line. It's gonna be we against them. And that's what gives birth to all the crime. And what happens is, at that point, everyone goes to their own shell. You go into your own shell and you would never see good in society you live in. So discrimination would never be eliminated, but it could be managed very well. And that is what we are trying to do here, that we manage it. And that's why we're not only giving the opportunity to immigrants to come work with us, but we are saying locals, Finns, who understand, come here on board and understand, okay, what do I go through as an immigrant? What is my daily life in Finland like? It's not easy. Come understand it. Then you could be able to see me clearly. And it's also on my part as an immigrant who has come to Finland to actually, okay, how does the Finn want me to behave? What do they want from me? Then I go, okay, I can meet you halfway. So the key is each one of us need to step out from our comfort zone.
Let's move on. So, the mic is off. So actually, really good, really interesting discussion here. Olga actually mentioned already pretty much, was similar to what Olga mentioned without us planning it together. But I'm kind of looking at the second question. Is there anyone here who would like to reflect on that? What do you think about? Do you think that removing the names from the resume could help combat work discrimination? So yeah, you would like to reflect on that. Yeah, you have the mic there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, simply removing the name doesn't achieve the goal, because you need to also remove basically all of the education experience, all of the work experience.
No, I mean, this is, yeah.
Can I tell
Go ahead, Olga.
an example what happened when we tested it for the first time? So basically, there came an order, okay, you are trying the nameless recruitment. Okay, we are trying. And then we had to actually think, so how are we going to do it? So it was a double work on the part of employer, because the secretary had to print all materials and then black names and also the university names, so that it would be actually that. But actually it produced very good results. We've got the person that would have never got to the interview to get the position. So, but it took like extra effort there. Like one person has to, see the applications and remove, and the other has to make choices about whom to interview.
Okay, well, counter question, why would that person not have got to the interview if the name had have been present?
There will be doubts based on the skills. Like, are the skills really there? Like third world university versus local university, sort of.
Right. Yeah, so okay, would you like to...
So that's what I'm saying, there was already a preconception that the university the person had attended wasn't equal to the university in Finland.
Yep.
It's already preordained that it wasn't acceptable.
Yes.
I can go. How many immigrants here vote?
You mean in national elections?
At any election?
Local.
Yeah.
Local, whatever. That's good. But the thing is, immigrants need to come out of their bubble and vote. There's a big margin of voter apathy in the immigrant community, and you should participate in the election so that you get your voice there.
Yes, so we had a suggestion from Osita, every immigrant should vote. So yeah, Olga, could you reflect on that as well?
Build up your weak ties. There was a book very long time ago called Strength of Weak Ties, which basically the main message is that your in-group of people shares the same pool of information with you. Very good information on jobs and opportunities doesn't travel in strong ties. because you know pretty much the same thing and you read pretty much the same stuff. But weak ties are ties, for example, you put your kids to the football club, you go volunteer at the Red Cross, you, I don't know, if you're young enough, go to Finnish army. I mean, any place will do. You're volunteering in election as in, you know, the committee that receives votes. Take your opportunities, because I mean, Finns make friends with co-workers, volunteer or paid. So network.
But it was actually a really great pleasure to be here. So I would like us to give, for example, a really good hand to all our panelists. I guess it's time now to give the gift to our panelists. Bettina, would you like to help me for example, to our panelists? We really appreciate you being here to support the issue. I'm really sorry we didn't cover as much as we could cover, but this is a start. This is a start. Thank you very much for being here. I'm really looking forward to work next with you. Hopefully we will have some interesting topic. This is the great moment. Actually, I closed the presentation already, but this is a great moment. Maybe you will wonder yourself, who is Entergrate? What is Entergrate doing? That's the reason why we have actually reserved 30 minutes for that after the session. We have a really great snack served. Thank you very much to, I would like to give credit to one of our members who is responsible of all this gathering here today. Yeah, thank you very much, Ibrahim. It's worth mentioning.
It's really worth mentioning because everything that is put on that table was given by Ibrahim and he was in charge of it. Like we said, everything we do here, we have zero. This hall was given to us for free and we've always had it for free. Everything we do is based on the fact that every one of us give our time, even though we don't have it. Sit and we plan and we make things to do. So,
yes,
thanks to everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, Osita. In order to conclude, I would like to say, if you are interested of following Entergrate, or I mean, this is a great moment to get to know about us. We have our website where you can actually see what is our purpose, mission, and vision. We have, we can link to us via Facebook or via Instagram. But feel free to talk to us at the moment. And if you have any suggestion, for example, that you would like to propose to Entergrate, what you think the future could be in tackling the issue that actually affect immigrants in Finland, this is the best moment for us to kind of get your input as well. So thank you very much for being here, and let's meet here. Thank you very much.